So a few days ago, I gave my classic movie review on Avatar, which is one of my all-time favorite films that it's remastered recently to get us all hyped for its sequel coming out in December. I finally started using a new rating scale. I'm not going to use the 0 to 10 scale when I make movie reviews for you guys anymore. I'm now going to use a 0 to 9 scale. It's an idea that I was toying for a while because ever since I started reviewing movies back in 2015 until, very recently, for the past 6 years, I've been using a 0 to 10 scale, which this scale has kind of aggrieved me for some time because my YouTube channel's name is TVB9, not TVB10. 9's my favorite number, so I figured I could make a slight change. I have when I use that scale, I had two ratings for movies that I loved, 9 out of 10s and 10s out of 10s, while for movies I hated, I had 3 ratings for that. A 2 out of 10 stars, hey, I hated this movie, or like a 1 out of 10 stars, or big fat 0 out of 10 stars. Why would I have 3 different sections for movies I hate versus only 2 sections for movies I love? So all I did was kind of just smudge the 1 and 2 out of 10 spots into just a 1 out of 9 spot, which I'll explain more later. I figured I'd just make this quick video explaining the changes I made to my rating scale, as well as give you guys some examples as what qualifies the movie I'd give for its respective ranking. 9 out of 9 stars I give for a film. This is the movies that I not only loved, but movies that truly went out of their way to go the extra mile to impress me. And films where it's I understand that no film is truly perfect and every film has at least a little flaw to it. These are films where I can't really say anything truly problematic or negative about it, and the worst things I can say are just very small nitpicks, missed opportunities, like the Lord of the Rings trilogy. I like to, these are my all-time favorite films, and I don't like to, I like to just smudge them together and say that's my favorite movie of all time, because I don't view the 3 movies as their own separate movies. I see them all as the same movie, just in 3 consecutive chapters. I look at the original Star Wars trilogy the same way. And 8 out of 9 stars is I still love this movie, but I will admit it's not there are some there are maybe one noticeable issue or a handful of nitpicks that you can make about it. Another Peter Jackson directed film, King Kong, back in 2005. I love this movie. It's the first PG-13 movie I ever watched when I was a kid. So I have a lot of nostalgic love on this film for because obviously I've been obsessed with dinosaurs since I was a little kid, and all the scenes where King Kong is fighting dinosaurs and other monsters on Skull Island. Just the visual effects are still hold up very well by today's standards. Andy Serkis, the king of motion capture, excellently played Kong, and this film is such a good time for me. I will say this: it doesn't receive the 9 out of 9 score because I will admit I'm aware of its flaws. It does have some issues. I can see why this movie didn't work for everybody. Did it need to be 3 hours long? No, it did not. But still, it's one of my all-time. It's still, with that being said, it's still one of my all-time favorites. And a 7 out of 9 stars with films that I really liked, not enough to say that I loved it, but films that I could see myself buying on DVD. An example is being X, which came out back in February. That and its prequel film that came out a few weeks ago, Pearl, are very well made films directed by Ty West, and I would consider buying this on DVD at some point. If I end up celebrating Halloween with friends this year, be hey, we should watch this because it's one of the better horror films that we've received within the past year. It had compelling characters, strong performances, mind-blowing makeup and hairstyling, and it was just a very beautifully shot film, and I recommend you guys should watch it if you haven't already. 6 out of 9 stars. I like this movie. It's not it's not great, but I enjoyed it for what it was. An example is being Scream 5 that came out back in January. As someone who hasn't watched any of the older Scream films directed by Wes Craven, may he rest in peace, I was pleasantly surprised by Scream. It definitely made me want to do so. Again, it's not great, but it has great humor, great satire on the horror genre, and nice performances all around. So I gotta say, it was definitely it was a thumbs up for me. And a 5 out of 9 stars, where it's yes, there are some notable issues with this film, and I could point them out easily, but at the same time I still enjoyed it enough. I had a decent time with it to give it a pass. An example of 5 out of 9 stars would be Beast, which starred Idris Elba. You can put Idris Elba or Charlton Copley in any movie together, and even if it's a horrible movie, there'll still be the better parts about it. It is your typical man versus beast thriller, and there were some scenes between the dad played by Idris Elba in this movie with his 2 girls I found rather annoying and just out of place. But at the same time, Beast, it was still well shot, and it was entertaining enough for me to give it a thumbs up. 4 out of 9 stars is just like, meh, this movie's okay. For all the good things you could say about it, there's enough bad things to say about it. But again, you weren't, I was not disappointed enough for me to give it a word, to say oh, I flat out disliked this movie. An example is being House of Gucci. This came out back in November. This movie, it's okay. Lady Gaga had an excellent performance in it, but at the same time, the pacing was very slow, and it just got boring, especially in the second half of it. Didn't dislike this movie, but I gotta say, it's just it was just okay. 3 out of 9 stars, getting lower down the scales. This film is yeah, I disliked it, but it's it wasn't offensive enough for me to just actually remember it. There's some bad movies they're just have a bad taste in your mouth and you can't forget that feeling. Well, these movies don't give me that. And that's an example of this would be Amsterdam, a film I actually just saw last night, directed by David O. Russell. Yeah, I think it was a movie of 3 out of 9 stars. I was really excited going to this movie because David O. Russell is a very respected director. He directed American Hustle and Silver Linings Playbook, and a really great cast. This movie had some very decent performances. The direction would just seem very off. It struck this weird balance between being uninteresting and being too fast-paced at the same time, and some scenes just some aspects of the script just didn't make sense. And also, this movie's called Amsterdam, but they're barely in Amsterdam. They're only actually in Amsterdam for a total of 10 minutes of screen time. These 3 out of 9 movies, they're not awful by any means, just they're just forgettable. So Amsterdam is a forgettable film. And a 2 out of 9 stars be yeah, I dislike this film, but there's enough redeeming qualities about it to just put it out of the whole oh, I hate this movie spot. An example is being Firestarter. It was a very unnecessary Stephen King remake, and Zac Efron was miscast. This movie's a horror film, but it's not suspenseful, it's not scary. Rainbird, who the bounty hunter in this film, he was the only interesting character about it. Zac Efron was just miscast. The ending was just it's stupid. So yeah, these movies, they're just stupid and they're bad, but not enough to say oh, I hate this movie. Now 1 out of 9 stars is yes, I hated this film, but at the same time, there's at least one redeeming quality you can think of. A good example of this would be Normal and North. This film was one I knew I wanted to review movies on a much more regular basis in high school. I hated this movie and I just ranted about it on screen. So Rob Schneider voices the talking polar bear, and his voice performance isn't it's not bad. I mean, he Rob Schneider, he did the best of the script that he was given. This movie, the writing, the plot is awful. It makes no sense. The animation is hideous, and the whole story is just full of cliches, and it doesn't know what it's talking about. It tries to make an environmental message that just falls flat on its face. But again, Rob Schneider, I didn't hate his voice performance, so I could give it that. I didn't hate this movie enough to give it a 0 out of 9. Now, 0 out of 9s. If you've been watching my reviews for a while, you probably know that I'm not the hardest guy to please with movies. So the film really needs to go out of its way to not go out of its way. This film, if that makes sense, this film needs to be just unfathomably horrible for me to give it a this rating. And there's only 4 movies I have seen in my entire life that I can really say that about. These are the 4 movies I would ever give a 0 out of 9 stars. There's Twilight, movie 43, 50 Shades of Grey, and my pick for the absolute worst movie of all time, Troll 2. Alright, there you guys have it. That's my new rating scale explained. If you like this video, don't forget to hit that thumbs up like button. You guys have a nice night. Stay beastly.